Every night, you lose consciousness. Your body becomes entirely paralyzed, yet your brain shifts into a state of extreme brain activity, matching and sometimes exceeding how it fires when you are wide awake. This deliberate physical paralysis is called REM atonia. As you enter rapid eye movement sleep, your brainstem actively cuts off motor commands to your spinal cord. It is a biological safeguard, locking your muscles in place so you don't physically act out the internal simulation you are about to experience. At the exact same time, the prefrontal cortex, the area of your brain responsible for logical thinking and self-monitoring, powers down. With your rational filters deactivated, you are forced to accept completely absurd dream logic, shifting environments, and bizarre physics as absolute reality. The brain intentionally severs its connection to the physical world. It isolates itself in the dark to run a highly convincing alternate reality that it fully believes. This chart, known as a clinical hypnogram, maps that descent. Over the night, the brain steps down through stages of light sleep, plunges into the deepest stages of physical restoration, and then suddenly spikes back up into the chaotic activity of REM. But sometimes this transition misfires. Waking consciousness turns back on, but REM atonia remains fully engaged. You are awake, aware of your bedroom, and entirely paralyzed. This glitch produces a specific cross-cultural hallucination. From the incubus of medieval Europe to the old hag of folklore, people consistently report sensing a malevolent entity pressing down on their chest. A mechanical timing failure in the sleep cycle creates an experience that feels completely indistinguishable from a supernatural encounter. For decades, neuroscientists dismissed dreams as static. The 1977 activation synthesis hypothesis argued that the brainstem simply fired off random neural noise during REM sleep, and the cortex frantically tried to stitch that noise together into a coherent story. But an April 2026 study in Nature Human Behavior proved the brain is doing something much more deliberate. Dream content is not random, it is highly structured. Researchers found that the brain actively extracts specific elements from your waking life, your personality traits, your baseline emotional state, and recent highly charged experiences, and actively recombines them into entirely new narratives. Dreams are not errors or biological exhaust. They are a specific, intentional data transformation of your waking life. Ancient civilizations understood dreams as literal commands. In Sumeria, King Gudea built an entire temple because a deity delivered the architectural blueprints to him in a dream. We no longer look for gods in our sleep, but we are still searching for the biological purpose of this simulation. This functional brain scan maps neural heat during REM sleep. The bright green and yellow areas show intense activation within the limbic and paralimbic systems, the brain's emotional centers. This supports the theory of overnight therapy, where the brain processes and safely diffuses the psychological charge of waking trauma. This exact same emotional activation forms the basis for a competing idea, threat simulation theory. Here, a terrifying nightmare about being chased isn't a problem. It is the system working perfectly, running safe biological training exercises so you can practice your responses to waking dangers. Even after a century and a half of mapping the hardware and tracking the data, science still cannot agree on the ultimate evolutionary purpose of the software. There is, however, an anomaly where the dreamer takes over the software. In a lucid dream, a logical prefrontal cortex suddenly reactivates, while the REM simulation continues running. You realize you are dreaming while remaining asleep. This was proven in a laboratory in 1975. Psychologist Keith Hearn agreed on a specific pattern of eye movements with a sleeping subject. Once the subject became lucid inside the dream, he performed the physical eye movements, signaling the waking world from deep inside the simulation. It proved that it is biologically possible for a human mind to exist in two mutually exclusive states at the exact same time, completely unconscious and entirely self-aware. For decades, neuroscientists assumed waking consciousness and the dream state existed in strictly separated biological boxes. You were either in one state or the other. This side-by-side visualization compares waking brainwave patterns. On the left is a standard waking brain. On the right is an ADHD brain, fully awake and moving through the world, yet displaying a visible intrusion of sleep-like, slow-wave frequencies. The boundary between reality and the dream world is highly permeable. The edge of sleep constantly bleeds into waking consciousness. Yet, despite the massive biological resources dedicated to building these dream worlds, the brain actively wipes them away. The moment you wake up, a sudden drop in the neurotransmitter noradrenaline triggers a memory wipe. Within 5 minutes, 95% of your dream content completely vanishes. This erasure may be an evolutionary protection mechanism. If we clearly remembered every dream as vividly as real events, we could not reliably distinguish our memories from our internal simulations. We know the brain consolidates memories, processes raw emotion, and simulates physical threats while we sleep. But none of these theories fully explain the sheer narrative depth of the places we go. Every night, you step out of reality. You live inside a vivid, complex alternate universe, entirely constructed by your own mind, which it then intentionally deletes by morning.